Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's podcast. My name is Wayne Bennett. This is episode 75. And today our guest is James Wheeler, former athlete that I used to coach at Park, and we've known each other quite some time. And Jamie, glad to have you here, buddy.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Wayne. Nice seeing you again.
And nice seeing you. And we're at the Bennett Farm, and it's in August. And having a little party today, and get to see a few people, kind of a reunion type thing. Now you grew up right on kind of the edge of Mabscott, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Right on the Beckley-Mabscott line.
Did you go to Mabscott Elementary?
Yeah, sure did.
And I know your dad and his brothers, they lived over in East Beckley for a while when I went to Sylvia School.
Yeah, that's where Dad grew up at.
And I was the same age as one of his brothers, David. And then I remember Ronnie and Richie. And
Richard, yeah.
Now, a couple of them played music.
Yeah.
And were pretty good guitar players.
Yeah, David and Richard.
Yeah.
Played in bands pretty much all their life.
Yeah. Great guitarist. And
definitely.
Did your dad ever play music?
No, he never was into the music, nor was I. I like to go listen to him, but as far as playing it, I don't have a musical bone in my body.
Well, and I had the opportunity to coach your brother too, Brian, and he was a couple years behind you, a few years behind you. Who first introduced you to sports?
Well, I started playing, I guess, midget football. Then I got into wrestling, and I think it might have been Phil Honecker originally got me into that. So I think my brother, started maybe before me. We were right at about the same time, got involved in it.
Now, your dad grew up in East Beckley. Where'd she come from?
Down around Mount Hope area.
Mount Hope.
Yeah. Price Hill is the name of the little town that she grew up in.
Now, of course, we had you were one of the first in the youth wrestling league at the YMCA, and did you ever play baseball?
I did play some baseball. Wasn't real successful at it, but I played up until probably, I guess I was maybe 13, 15. I never played high school.
Which sport did you like the best?
I actually liked football the best. I was probably a better wrestler than I was a football player. If I'd have dedicated myself to wrestling as much as I did football, then who knows. But kind of got burnt out on the wrestling thing. Started at such a young age.
Yeah.
But football was always my passion. Wanted to actually play college football, and after I got out of the military, I considered walking on at Marshall, and I started talking to Chris Gross and some other athletes there, and they said, this is not, it's fun, but it's very serious, in other words.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, a little different atmosphere is what he said. So
now you were when you were in the ninth grade, you were on that team at Park and Coach Art Lambert was the head coach, and I was the assistant, and we went undefeated in football, and I think was undefeated in wrestling also that year. I had a pretty good group of athletes. But the year before, in football, we had gone 0-8 and had lost every game. But I could kind of see the eighth graders at that time, the potential, and so that's when we tried to get some JV games to get you guys some experience, and that paid off. But we were undefeated, but we didn't blow people out. There was some close ball games.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Stratton junior high was a good game. Logan, I think, was a pretty good game. So there was some pretty tight ball games during that time. If you and then when you went on to Woodrow, of course, in junior high you were fairly small. You wrestled about 112 pounds, 105.
Yeah, and then I caught a growth spurt, which
when did you shoot up there?
That was I went from like 112 to 126 to like 160 in just really about a year and a half or so. It was that was between ninth grade and 10th. And then, of course, I gained even more weight and started filling out a little bit. And
you grew taller too.
And taller, yeah. It was definitely a big change, wrestling 112 and then going up to 160 in such a short period of time.
That was kind of the same situation that Tamar Slay, when he played junior high football and basketball, he was a little old skinny guy, and then all of a sudden he grew 6 inches, and before he got out of high school. And but your brother Brian didn't hit that growth spurt, did he?
No, he never did gain a lot of height. In fact, I think now he's 5'10", and I'm 6'2". But of course, we know what kind of athlete he was.
Yeah, he was
excellent football player, wrestler, fullback in football, and inside linebacker. So he was a tough athlete.
Now, as far as sports is concerned, if you had something to do over, what would you do? If there was any, would you change anything or?
Well, I probably would. I kind of regret dropping out of wrestling. I think I would have dedicated myself more and finished that.
What year did you?
Senior years when I dropped out, and I just got kind of burnt out on it, and it wasn't a passion anymore. And I look back, and I do have that regret, to invest that much time and effort, and I should have realized and made it more fun than what it was, and said, I'm here with all my buddies, and I'm going to wrestle and do the best I can, and not put so much pressure on me. The weight loss was always not the fun part of wrestling.
Yeah, that's always been kind of a negative situation, and it was tougher back in those days. It's changed a lot.
Yeah,
the rules and regulations have done away with some of the crazy stuff that we used to do and other coaches did, and it's become a lot safer, and it has changed a lot, and people's philosophies have changed. Instead of dropping so much weight, they just get stronger, and move up if you want to.
Yeah.
But now, after you graduated in 1989, I guess, from Woodrow Wilson,
I did.
And what did you do then after you got out of high school?
I enlisted in the U.S. Army.
And how long were you in the Army?
2.5 years active duty. I was sent over to Germany. I was in Air Defense Artillery, and which is, we shot down, we operated a Hawk missile system, which is designed to shoot down like Scud missiles and aircraft, things like that. And then I was in Germany for a while, and we got deployed to Persian Gulf and spent 6 months over there.
Was that during the war, the Persian Gulf War?
It was,
Yeah,
back in 1990.
Yeah. Had you ever thought about staying in the Army?
Well, of course, they want you to stay in. I worked hard as a soldier and did exceptionally well, not to pat myself on the back, but I did work really hard and did what I was told, and they always liked that. And so I really never considered it. I went in to get the Army's college fund and to get out, and that's what I did. They were, of course, trying to want me to re-enlist, and they were promising me a sergeant position, E5, but I just decided to get out, go to college. I went back into reserves and went through drill sergeant school and taught basic training down in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, as a reservist out of Beckley. Was where my unit was at. So I spent another 2.5 years there. I considered actually staying in and retiring as a reservist. And my wife at the time was like, well, you're allowed to get deployed again, and we got 2 kids and the whole 9 yards. So kind of talked me out of staying in and retiring.
Now you had 2 kids, boy, girl?
Yeah, Alexis and Nicholas.
How old are they now?
My daughter's 23 and my son's 21.
And did either one of them play any sports or anything?
My son wrestled a little bit, never really, pursued it, so to speak. My daughter was an excellent gymnast, and she danced, which a lot of the dance was incorporated, a lot of her gymnastics, and she was a cheerleader.
Yeah.
at
Well,
Parkersburg.
did you think the sports might have helped you in your Army career and reservist?
Well, it definitely did. Everything that you learn growing up, all the dedication that you have to put forth into wrestling and football and whatnot, definitely helps you have that discipline when you go in. It's not a big shock, getting up and working hard and, spending very, very long hours. All that plays into a part of who I am today.
Now, when you got out of the service, you said you wanted to go to college. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to Marshall University. I spent 4 years there. 120 some hours later, I still don't have a degree. But
Well, you're not far off.
no, I'm not. So I was studying biology, and I had trouble with chemistry and physics, but I wasn't as dedicated in my last years as I should have been. So,
Were you wanting to teach or what?
I really didn't know. I'd actually considered being a PA, a physician assistant. So I went to Alderson Broaddus and looked at their program, and I went to Mountain State University and talked to the president of the school there at the time. Bob Kosnowski was able to get me a interview with him, but I just chose a different path in life, and things happen for a reason. Don't really regret anything as far as that goes.
But you stayed in Huntington.
Yeah.
And what'd you pick up then? What did you get into?
Well, I sold insurance for a while and worked really hard at that. And I dedicated probably 4 or 5 years to selling mainly life insurance. And that kind of got old and, boring. And I got into playing cards. And I've been playing cards as a professional now for probably 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat. Had you ever played cards before? I mean, as a kid or?
No, nothing like what I do daily now. So it's kind of weird how that occurred. I remember the first time I was in Las Vegas. I was dating this girl, and she had a company trip. She worked for the bank, and we went to Las Vegas. And I was sitting down at this card table, and it was a limit game, meaning you can only bet a certain amount. You can't bet all your money. But anyhow, I had a cod lock on the hand, and I was wanting to pull more money out of my pocket to try to bet it. And of course, that's a big sign that you got a big hand. And they were like, "No, buddy, you can't pull any more money out of your pocket. You can only play what's on the table."
Yeah.
So that was kind of the beginning of where it all started at.
Well, how did you know how did you learn you were good at it? I mean, did you start winning immediately, or?
It took time, but I just kind of dedicated myself to it, and over time, I realized that I was making money at it, and just one thing led to another, and
What do you mainly play? What games do you name?
Well, it started off as Texas Hold'em back when I first started, and now it's Omaha, 4-card Omaha. The games are really big that I play in, and it's not uncommon for people to win 30,000 in a session of playing cards. That's in a given night, and it's not uncommon to have a bad night and lose 10,000. So,
well, how often do you play?
5 nights a week. I mean, I could play more. I've played less. I took 3 days off this past week, and only played a couple. So it gives me the flexibility of playing when I want to, and taking off when I want to. So I love that flexibility.
Now, you live in Huntington. Where do you go to play this kind of?
Yeah.
I mean, where?
Mainly home games. I mean, there's a casino not far away there in Cross Lanes that I go to occasionally, but there's a couple games twice a week in Ashland, Kentucky that I go to. And they start out early in the morning, believe it or not. People always think, that the card games, you got to play late night. But believe it or not, I get up at 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes don't stop playing until 3 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's generally when those long sessions, things aren't going well. Whenever I'm going in at 7:30, the game starts at 9, and I'm done by noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got the rest of the day to go, do what I want to do, ride my side by side or whatnot. Things have went well that day. So when I'm there at 3 o'clock in the morning, things aren't going too good for me.
Well, there was a rumor there one time in Thurman, West Virginia. There was a poker game that went on for 13 years.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure it wasn't the same players.
Yeah.
But I do know. I mean, when we were building the house that I live in, on a Friday we had a couple guys helping us. And me and my dad and a couple of guys on Friday after work, we laid down a piece of plywood on some buckets and sat around and started playing cards, temporary light, and played for several hours. And then some guys from the bar down below my house had heard about the game, came up, and of course, I left and went home, and that game lasted till Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And so it went a whole weekend, but
yeah.
not the original players. But so where do you get your money? I mean, how do you just all of a sudden? I mean, throw out $10,000, or do you have sponsors? Or
yeah, I've got a backer that I've actually got 2 backers. I got more that want to back me, but the games are so big. I've chose to go that route, and it helps offset some of the losses. So when I lose 10 grand, I'm actually only losing 5. So it's a 50-50 deal.
Yeah.
And they put up the cash, and then we split the profits and split the losses.
Uh-huh.
So it helps offset these big games. That game I play on Sunday especially. I mean, there's people that put $500 to $1,000 out in the middle before they look at their cards.
Wow.
It's called straddling. So the game is really, really big, and the swings can be really big. So it helps kind of offset some of the swings in the game.
Is it nerve-wracking for you, or is it?
Somewhat. I mean, if you're not doing well, of course it is, because you're not only playing for yourself, but you're playing for somebody else. So there's a lot of trust that's involved. These people that have backed me will send me to Vegas with $15,000 on trust only.
Uh-huh.
And but we've been doing it for years, and kind of got out of playing at Vegas because I realized that getting on a plane, flying all the way out there, staying for a month at a time, away from your family and friends. I mean, some friends will stay a week, but they don't stay a month. So it got to be old, so I decided, and expensive. When you stay out in Vegas for a month, you can imagine what it takes just to break even. I mean, you got to win 10 grand.
Yeah.
Just to break even. So I found that eliminating that, I was much happier. It worked out a lot better. I come home, sleep in my bed at night. Now the furthest I drive now is basically an hour and a half one way, and I rarely actually do that. Most of the games that I play in are 45 minutes away.
Are you still married?
No, I got divorced.
It wasn't over the cards, was it?
I don't know if it played a role in it or not. She never said that was the reason. You would have to ask my ex about that, but.
Well, I just wondered about how that would have an effect on the
I can
family.
tell you this: when I was married and I would win 10 grand, she wanted to always go buy a $5,000 bracelet with my winnings. And when I lost, of course, he bitched a little bit here and there. So you gotta accept the good with the bad.
So when you're filling out your income tax report, you put professional gambling?
I do, yeah.
Really?
I do, yeah.
Is there an association that gamblers belong to, or any kind of organization, or how do they get in these tournaments and stuff on TV and those kind of things?
Well, the tournament play is a little different than what I play. Tournament play, you have a set buy-in, and that's pretty much all you can lose unless you what they call rebuy. So, for example, if you go to a $500 tournament and there's 1,000 people in there, that's a $500,000 prize pool, and the most you can lose is that $500, unless you bust out of the tournament, and then a lot of them will allow rebuys where you can actually buy back into the tournament, and you get a certain amount of chips. And, I played tournaments for a while. It's just so difficult to make it through these big fields. The most I ever won playing a tournament was $30,000. And if I look back at all the time that I invested playing tournaments, I would have been much better off playing cash.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of play, and I never was super successful at it.
But those are the guys that become famous.
The recognition, yeah. The swings
but
are big.
But that doesn't pay the bills necessarily.
It doesn't. I mean, one of the better players, tournament players, is stuck $1 million this year. He's down $1 million by playing tournament poker.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that you buy into some of these tournaments, $5,000 and $10,000 buy-ins. And it can get real expensive if you don't succeed, and all the money's top heavy, meaning that you have to make it through 90% of the field. Only the top 10% of the field in tournament play get any money at all, and the lower 10% only really get their money back plus maybe just a little extra. So you have to get in the top 5%, or actually less than that, probably the top 2% before you're really actually making any significant money.
What do the guys who win consistently, what do they do different than anybody else? Or do they have a different look? Or they...
you got to play your opponent, for one. A lot of times people play their hand only, and they don't play their opponent who they're in the pot with. So, one guy plays crazy as can be, and another guy plays nothing but the stone cold nuts, or very tight player. You can't play those two players the same. You have to play those two players differently. Meaning that one player, a certain hand, you're going to always call him because of the way he plays. And if he's got you beat, you just got to pay him off. The other player, you absolutely know that guy's not putting that much money into the pot unless he has the absolute best hand. So sometimes you just got to throw a very, very good hand away against that player.
Besides cards, do you ever gamble any other way? I mean, like slots or ball games?
I do not anymore. I've never been one to bet sports bets at all. I've kind of learned from some of my other buddies' regrets that that's not the way to go.
Yeah.
So I never got into that. I never really got into slots. Back many years ago, I started playing craps a little bit, and I was successful at it for roughly 2 or 3 days, and I won like 30 grand. And I thought that I knew what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And, these casinos are not built, they're built off of losers, not off of winners. So their main source of income is slot machines. The margin for them winning in craps and blackjack is a lot less, but they still have the margin to beat you.
Yeah.
So, to make a long story short, I played table games for probably about 6 months after I won that $30,000. I mean, it was a nice time as far as the experiences. I mean, they would fly me out to, or put me up in Vegas and Atlantic City in the nicest rooms and give you $700 meals and whatnot and treat you like gold. But as I slowly gave the money back, they started cutting back on what they offer you too, and I finally realized this is not a life. For one thing, it's not healthy. I was up all night long partying, and, I could tell you a lot of stories, but probably not here on air.
You don't meet mafia guys, do you, or anything like that?
At the card table, you meet all kinds. I mean, I play with doctors, lawyers, drug dealers. It's the whole gamut of people, accountants, Of course, the people that are dealing drugs, they spend their money a little easier than somebody out digging ditches, and they'll throw it in there. I mean, one game, guy brings in $300,000 in a Walmart bag.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when do you know when to get up and walk away from the table? I mean, that it's...
Yeah.
Is there a sign there?
Well, I mean...
Other than being broke?
Yeah, if you're playing bad, you got to realize that. Some days you just are not on your game, and if you're playing bad, you need to get up, because it generally is not going to improve. If you are, winning and you realize that you've got most of the money on the table, then there's no need to stay to get the scraps that are left. Those are things that you just learn in time. If somebody has money in front of them that is going to give that stack away, a bad player, for example, that has lucked into winning a $5,000 pot, at that point in time, you want to stay and try to get that money, because most likely that player is going to give it to somebody. Yeah. So it might as well be you.
You're a young guy, what, 51, 50?
Yeah, 51.
51. What's on your bucket list? What would you like to accomplish before you leave this earth? I mean, what's something you haven't done? Obviously you've got a little traveling in the military, and you've lived a pretty eclectic type of life. But what's something that you would like to do?
I'd like to travel more. There's a few places that I would love to go. I've never been to Alaska. I'd like to take a fishing trip out there and, spend a week, 10 days, whatever out there. I've never been to Australia. I'd like to go there as well. I could see myself maybe one day owning a boat on the ocean and being able to do some fishing out in the Gulf Stream.
I had a guy I interviewed a couple of weeks ago who has fished everywhere, all over the world. And one of the comments he made about Alaska, you don't know what kind of weather you're going to get when you get there. And one particular week that he went, he said it rained the whole time, but they fished. Yeah. It didn't make no difference. Yeah. But it was, he said, you're just not sure what you're going to get. And but the fishing was great. Well, James, I appreciate you coming on the program, and I've learned a whole lot, and I learned I better stay away from playing cards.
Well, thank you for having me.
I don't know much past go fish, but appreciate having you, and
thank you,
and appreciate knowing you, and you guys, the Wheelers, have always been dear to me, and bring back a lot of good memories.
Yeah, it definitely, it's been a pleasure knowing you, and I appreciate you coaching me and making me who I am today.
Well, thank you.
You've been a big part of that. Thank you.
Anybody else out there that wants to be on the program, just contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com. And remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And this is Wayne Bennett. God bless you.